Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace coming to you from Podcast at Ground Zero Studios. We're going to be doing our third episode today. We're going to be talking about commerce and the apocalypse. And what we have today, besides Mr. Adam Scott Glancy, our standard co-host, we have two other guest hosts that are going to be with us today. We have Mike Verhola. Mike, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
Okay, and we have...
Glad to be here.
Yes, and we also have Richard and Richard
Bosley.
Bosley, thank you. Like I said last time, I'm terrible with names. Okay.
You can't remember Dick Bosley.
No, I can't. I cannot remember Dick Bosley. But thank you for that.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
So Mike and Richard are joining us today. They are friends of ours, friends of the apocalypse, friends from the game industry, and they've worked on materials related to the apocalypse. And Mike, tell us, just give us a brief overview of who you are, just a couple of sentences, who you are, what you do.
I'm the founder of Skirmisher Publishing. I publish role-playing games and tabletop games, and some of what I publish are post-apocalyptic source books, mostly ones for use with the Mutant Future system, which is sort of a Gamma World retro club.
And that's also, you also put out the Wasteland Weekly, correct?
Yeah, Wisdom from the Wasteland, is a publication that we come out with approximately twice a month, and it's somewhere between a basic system and a system-free small publication that is just pure crunch of material that can be used with post-apocalyptic role-playing games.
Okay.
So mutations, weapons, what have you.
Yeah, and Chris Van Deelen, who was on with us last time,
He's
mentioned it as well. He does some writing for that as well. So again, everybody see the connections we got here.
Actually, so
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Richard, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I predominantly just do writing and game design stuff. My blog is probably the thing that most people would be familiar with, and I basically tell people like how games work, dissecting the intricacies of design and like how they can use those for implementing their own things.
Excellent. And part of the reason, guys, I want everybody, our viewers, to know that I wanted to have Richard on because Richard wrote an article about creating monetary systems for role-playing games. So it's, again, related to commerce and how, like Richard said, how it's kind of wanky and hard to do. So I want, he has a good perspective on, money and economics. And then, of course, Mr. Glancy, how are you doing this week, Mr. Glancy?
Just fine. By the way, Mr. Wallace, you said we were broadcasting from the podcast at Ground Zero Studios. Where exactly are those studios located? Is it near Prime Base?
I cannot disclose its current location.
I noticed
that was coming.
The patch on the jacket behind you there would seem to suggest that it's near Prime Base.
Oh, you mean that jacket right back there?
That's it. That's the one.
Everybody, again, more of my geekery, my Morrow Project patch on my M65 field jacket, okay? Just, again, to show more of my post-apocalyptic geek cred because I just can't get enough of it. And and also, since we're going to do that real quick, let's digress for a second here. Do we see if this could focus here. This dog tag here, you probably can't see it very well. I actually had Morrow Project dog tags made up from a company that does dog tags. So... Yeah,
Now,
I'm that dedicated to the art.
I understand being excited about the Morrow Project, but I gotta tell you, for everyone who knows about the Morrow Project, I'll bet you only 1 in 10 ever played it.
I played it. I played it once, one session, and it went horribly wrong because the DM was terrible.
Oh.
So,
well.
But what are you gonna do?
Classics of the nuclear age. Moving along.
Exactly. Okay, folks, just a couple of quick tidbits for in the news, a couple of things I've run across. Let me pull this up here. I'm sure we've all heard of Mr. M. Night Shyamalan's next movie coming out called After Earth, which seems like a pretty cool post-apocalyptic type scenario, but it really is. But
it is M. Night Shyamalan, and he can fuck up a good idea better than almost anybody out there. Really.
Exactly. So I mean, I've seen the trailers again, and it's just Will Smith and his kid. It just does not look good.
Is it his actual kid playing his kid?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, of course, nepotism in film. But you know what? I'll wind up seeing on Netflix or something because it's post-apocalyptic, and I want to see the world settings. So,
dude, you watched Deathland's Homecoming, so if you watch that, you're gonna watch this.
Exactly. And then another movie I heard about once, and now I've seen it. I just saw a trailer for it again. It's called The Colony. I don't know if you've heard about this.
That's a TV series.
No. Not The Colony, which we're going to talk about one week. There's a movie called The Colony coming out, which takes place in the next ice age, and it's kind of in the north. And there's separate, there's last bastion colonies of mankind, spread throughout. And apparently, one of them, they lost. There's one base, colony number 7, lost contact with number 5, which is the last one they've been in contact with. So they gotta go find out what the fuck's going on. Are they the last people left on Earth? It looks like it could be fairly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Colony, like you say, if you have a chance, just look it up, the Colony movie, and I'm sure you could find it. It looks fairly interesting.
I guess we haven't had a cold apocalypse since The Day After Tomorrow, or maybe Quintet.
Yeah, the Day After Tomorrow.
Quintet.
Yeah.
See? Glancy mentions Quintet. Jared and I were just talking about that last week, Scott.
Yeah, Mike brought that up to me. I was not aware of that movie, so.
It's sort of a post-apocalypse, or at the very least, a dystopia after the apocalypse.
What do you use for your quintet pieces, Scott? What are your 3 quintet
I use the carved leg bones of my victims. That's what I use. Or perhaps it would be more appropriate to have a walrus tusk quintet piece or something.
Well, remember, everybody had three identical tokens, and all the tokens were unique. So here are my quintet tokens. This is what I use when I play quintet. And we've actually got the rules for quintet posted to our D-Infinity website. So can we post that in archive after the show, Jared?
Absolutely. Just send me the link.
Conspirators before the fact for all the homicides that are going to take place? I mean, which version of Quintet are we talking about?
The homicidal one. The homicidal one. Absolutely.
One. Okay.
And it's a 5-person game, so only one of us, we'd have to get one more, and only one would walk away. So
nice.
There you go.
I'm interested in following up on that. So those are some movies that I saw coming out, and a friend of mine sent me a link to this zombie bedroom set. It's like sheets with blood and stuff. It wasn't that interesting, but it's like blood on the sheets and hands. It wasn't that interesting, but what it did was take me to some links. And unfortunately, these are all over in England. There's this group that kind of does what Mac McLaughlin does. Our friend of ours from what's the name of his company again?
Mind Game Productions.
Mind Game Productions. It does airsoft. They have an abandoned mall that they've kind of tweaked out a little bit, and they give you guns, and they put you against this hordes of zombies running through. And I saw a couple of videos on it. It looked like it could be fairly interesting. It's like, I wouldn't mind checking that out. So that looked. But again, it's over in England.
How does McLaughlin swing this? He got an abandoned.
Oh no! Like our friend Mac McLaughlin does.
Okay. All right.
Oh, but the shit he pulls off is he's in Central Florida now, and all these what does he do, Mike? He gets these military training grounds, police buildings, and little villages, and he runs all these Fallout style airsoft games. It's crazy.
He's doing stuff on 200-acre military training facilities. He's actually done military reenactments for airsoft with 100 guys on each side, and he brings in active duty black ops colonels to lead each side of the. He gets ex-Spetsnaz guys. Oh yeah, it's absolutely fanatical crap. Yeah, it's crazy. He's over the top.
Yeah, he does some really good shit.
It's Camp Blanding down in your neck of the woods, Jared.
Oh, I remember Camp.
They've actually got a area that's constructed to look like a part of Vietnam War stuff.
Scott used to live in Orlando, so Scott knows that area.
Yeah.
I remember Camp Blanding from Twilight 2000. It was one of those locations that came up in reading one of the gazetteers for the U.S. Army guide, and the 104th Infantry Division has got a base at Camp Blanding, Florida. I didn't know what the hell it was until I looked it up. But yeah,
Okay.
I don't know how Mac gets away with that. Anyways, moving on.
Because he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got the money.
Apparently.
Yeah,
Sure, we'll open our facility to you. No.
Rock star personality.
he does. He does.
Yeah.
So let's talk about money and commerce, because again, we're going to talk about this week money, commerce in the apocalypse. Because, well, what is money? What is commerce? What is currency? Again, currency is what we know today is paper money that's supposedly is backed by gold, because that is what our society deems as not anymore.
We killed the gold standard. We're off that now.
Oh, so
and
now
we decided that money is now only a representation of what our net economy is worth.
okay.
That's what we're on now. We haven't been on the gold standard since what? Roosevelt? Was it Roosevelt who killed the gold standard? FDR?
Yeah, but I think the only functional difference is when we run a gold standard, you were supposed to be able to bring a $20 bill into a bank and theoretically redeem it for gold. The only functional difference, and there, people will tell you that this is a big difference, but the only functional difference is now you can't walk into a bank and demand $20 worth of gold at the current value. But mostly you're not going to be doing that. Mostly you're going to be buying a cup of coffee and buying groceries, and so most people don't need to be doing that anyway.
Yeah, but even in the ancient world, currency was never Roman currency, anyways, was never actually worth the precious metal it was made out of. It was always even Roman currency, sestertii and denarii, were always diluted with baser metals. It was always sort of a representation of this is just what our economy is worth. This is it's backed by the empire. It's backed by the United States. Or in the case of bottle caps and Fallout, backed by the merchants of the hub. So you can come in, your bottle caps are worth something so long as you're close enough to use them or redeem them eventually in the hub. The further away, the less value they become.
I think it's interesting, Scott, that you bring up the fact of the Roman Empire, because if you look at the word salary is rooted in the word salt, because that's what the Roman soldiers were paid in. I mean, it's like the phrase worth your weight in salt. Salt was way more valuable than what people put commodity into it today, because it was how you preserve food. Amongst other things. So salt was something you used for sustaining your own life, and so it had supreme value. So it was worth more than most of the coins, because the coins aren't going to keep you, going through the winter. Well,
I mean, coinage or currency essentially comes down to a representation of labor.
Right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's something that represents units of labor that you have. That your labor was worth this much. You made a pot, or you forged a sword, or you plowed a field and you harvested it. That's your labor turned into something abstract rather than concrete. And boy.
Well, it's one of the things that I think is interesting with the word currency, is because it flows, like the current of a river. It's something that moves. The Chinese, they invented paper money, and the expression that they had for it was flying cash or flying money, because it went from your hand to somebody else's. It's not like you kept it. You used it to buy whatever you needed, so you only had it for as long as you actually needed it, on your person, to accomplish whatever you needed to get the physical objects that you needed for your survival, and so on and so forth. And so you have that aspect of it, and then there's this issue of how much is that particular object worth, and that has to do with what it currently is valued at by the society.
Whatever the market will bear.
Yeah, currency is what do they hold valuable? What is currently, what do they think is worth of value, and what is it going to represent? Because otherwise we're just going back to just trading, 2 pigs for 3 chickens and a cow. It's back to a barter system, and I guess that's what eventually evolved. But Mike had me and Mike were having a conversation about it once, at how the ancient Egyptians didn't get into the currency until the Greeks came in and forced them to be on a currency type system.
Yeah, they accepted precious metals, but only at their weight for whatever their accepted value was. So gold and silver had value, but only by weight, not by face value. They were very, very suspicious of the whole concept of stamped coinage, in part because of what Scott was talking about, that the money was rarely worth what the face value of a coin said it was worth. So they were only interested in the weight. And really, I would postulate, and I'd say can certainly accept debate on this, I would postulate that a cash-based society is the exception to the rule anyway. That what we've really seen throughout history has been a non-cash or a low-cash type system. Feudalism is essentially a cash-free system.
Interesting.
I mean...
Yeah.
No, sorry, I don't want to monologue here.
No, that's fine. No, it's again. We wanted to just kind of, like I said, establish kind of like what is currency. So now, if we take that, our modern interpretation and understanding of it is like, now let's just bring it to the future. Where after we've destroyed society and now we have an apocalypse.
Currency is an outgrowth of specialization. It represents a necessary common denominator in a society where everybody is doing different sorts of things. In a society where 80% of the people grow food and 20% of the people fight and defend the people that are growing food, or go and steal the food that the people in the kingdom next door are growing, you don't need currency. You only need currency when you've got someone who acts at the same time. Agrarian society, a feudal society, the society that we've seen for 99% of human history, you don't need cash. All you need is arrangements. I will grow food, and I will give you 30% of the food that I grow in exchange for you keeping people from killing me and letting me till this land that you defend. That's it. You don't need cash for that.
Exactly, yeah. And that's... Oh, go ahead, Richard.
I was going to say, that kind of feeds off of what Scott said earlier about, the abstract nature of the system.
Right.
Because how do you determine what one person's labor is worth compared to another's? You can do that with cows and chickens, because the chicken lays eggs. You can keep getting those eggs, but when you kill the chicken, it doesn't have as much meat. So there's haggling that goes on with the value of that kind of thing. But if you say okay, this guy's a carpenter, he's building your house. How much is his time worth for building that house for you? It's not the same thing as the silversmith or the swordsmith. When you have somebody doing a specific function, that becomes a much more difficult thing to measure against somebody else's labor.
Exactly. Now, if we take what Mike was saying about how I'll grow the food if you protect me, it's like, now if we put that into the post-apocalyptic scenario, it could very easily work into that. It's like, okay, we have a group of survivors together, and it's like, well, we're the badasses, we got the guns, but we don't know how to grow food. Why don't you grow food and you feed us, and we'll protect your asses?
And I think that is much, much more likely of an outcome than the idea that bottle caps or domars or dollars or gold coins or anything are going to likely to be a currency. I think a neo-feudal system is just as likely as anything to evolve in a post-apocalyptic environment. Everybody's got to eat.
I would say that it's probably the most likely system.
Scott?
What's that?
I was going to say, I think it would be the most likely system, because
so.
It's like you have the power exchange. It's almost like the whole Roman patronage system in that regard. I mean, that's what feudalism grew out of.
It's the feudal system of the Middle Ages, which grew out of that Roman patronage system.
Yeah,
exactly. So.
That's exactly Scott, you were going to say something? Oh, he's
never sounded better.
No, he's he's muted.
Clearly, I can hear though.
There you go. Okay, now he's back. Scott.
Clearly, I was going to say that I think Metro 2033 has it right that one of the earliest forms of currency that's going to evolve is something they don't have in the Middle Ages, and that's ammunition.
Oh, that is.
They made a system in their video game and in their novel that bullets are the new currency. That
not new bullets. Old military grade bullets were the currency.
But even so, you could trade in. Oh yeah. Reloads for as well. But ammunition, something portable, something you can break into small lots. Its value depends on, well, great, you got a bunch of 50 caliber rounds, but who's got an M2 heavy barrel to put them in?
But I would suggest that that is not a currency system. Currency, by definition, is something that has only one function. It can only be used to trade for other things. If you have a choice between putting in your gun and firing it or spending it as money, it is not a currency system. It is a specialized barter system.
Fair enough.
Yes. It would be a barter system. But that is because most things I found in most apocalyptic books, movies, novels, generally tend to be barter and trade. It tends to be, especially right after an apocalypse, trade is the most common thing, and they don't really have a specialized barter system. Now, the bullets in Metro 23, my favorite, absolutely, because I read the book, I played the game, I love it that they use the old bullets, because now it's like, well, I'm going to die here, I could either shoot my money or save it for later. So that's one of my favorites that I actually like is the bullets in Metro 2033, as opposed to the one that I absolutely disdain. And Richard is in agreement with me because I saw his post on Facebook today. Domars. From my favorite game, Gamma World. Actually, here, let me do something here as I show you.
Can you actually pull out? I have a copy of Gamma World about 10 feet away. Do you want to? Should I pull out the actual section that describes Dolmars, and we have a dramatic reading?
Yes, please give us a dramatic. While you're doing that, I'm going to show this picture to everybody that I showed to Richard, which I've modified a picture from the Gamma World rulebook, where a guy's actually looking at it, probably a Domar, and it expresses my opinion of it. So hold on one moment.
There you go. There you go.
Domars.
The original old gray 1980.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the bullets versus the Domars, because I think that kind of shows the two ends of the spectrum of currency in a post-apocalyptic setting. Oh, yeah. You have one that's a metaphor for life itself, which is what money has become. It's like if you don't have money in modern society, you're pretty much not going to live for very long, because that's how we transact things to keep us going. Whereas you have something useless as plastic, which is not going to sustain you in any way.
Well, the thing that kills me about here's what kills me about Domars. Okay,
I found the section.
The game was developed in the 1970s. Okay, now in the 1970s, their interpretation of money and currency in the far future when it happened is, we're not going to go digital or cred sticks like Shadowrun. We're going to use plastic colored coins. We've advanced enough to where we could fly to the moon and shoot death rays, and we're going to use plastic colored coins for money. That's the height of technology there.
It was an analog society. There were some mental paradigm shifts that people just hadn't made at that point.
I know, but still.
Yeah. Well, part of it is like it doesn't make sense if you think about it from a logical standpoint of, I don't know, maybe that all the oil that you use to make the plastic would be taken out of the energy system that you would need to sustain everything to advance that far.
Weak.
It's all fusion and Tesla broadcast energy.
Yeah, but before you get to that point...
lines. But there's plastic coins. You're walking around with a bag jingling full of ducats.
And point of fact, they're probably not plastic anyway. They're probably some sort of composite they just couldn't conceive of back in the day. They said plastic. I'd read composite. They just didn't have that word.
No, it says plastic. Scott, please read to us from the Book of Gamma World.
Okay. The Domar was the basic monetary unit of the world before the Holocaust. It is a lightweight coin inlaid with colors and symbols denoting various denominations and nearly indestructible. because that's important. You wouldn't
Casino chips
to burn up or something, you know. This is like a middle-aged feudal tyrant.
That's a Domar.
Middle-aged feudal tyrant's idea of good money, you know.
Well, they also use gold pieces of Gamworld as well. So there you go.
Since the nature of the Domar makes it impossible to counterfeit, it is still used widely as a means of exchange.
Who would want to counterfeit it?
What? Oh my God. Yeah.
You
However,
wouldn't be able to.
since it is possible that the ruins of an ancient bank may be found in the wilderness, there is the possibility of new Domars being released into the economy.
Yay!
By the adventurers, thus destroying the value of a settlement's trade goods.
You know what? That is almost verbatim taken out of any number of D&D modules. I think B6, Horror on the Hill, has that almost exact same phraseology. When the player characters bring in all the gold from the dungeon on the hill, they're going to destroy the economy of this.
It was the same company who made him.
It was right, and written by a lot of the same people. Remember, they only let 12 people write for the whole goddamn company for like 20 years. In 20 years, you saw the same 12 names again and again and again on the cover of everything. So yeah.
Now, another game-related commerce system I found was I was flipping through because it was on my nightstand. I have a copy of, I don't know if you remember Redline by Horizon System by Fantasy Flight Games 2003.
Don't know it.
Basically, it is a high-speed road duels in the post-apocalyptic future. Basically, they tried to make Mad Max the game with the horrible D20 system. So now the currency in there they don't really have a currency per se, but it was the idea seemed kind of interesting to me. I really should have bookmarked the page that it was on. Hold on a second here. Let me find it.
Go ahead.
They use something. Okay, here it is. It is equipment may be bought or salvaged. If it is bought, its value is measured in resource units, or RUs. This is a very abstract unit that can be used by players and GMs for ease of game mechanics. It's like they're just trying to make a system just to fluff over, but there's no real definition to it. But it's kind of interesting how they say that a resource unit can be measured in three things: either a full tank of gas, a day's worth of food, or a day's worth of water. That I find interesting system that they value. Here's a tank of gas. That's going to get you X amount of material. Again, it's still a specialized barter.
Consumables. It's valued in consumables.
Yes.
I don't know if
it's
you guys
a proto-currency system.
It's what?
A proto-currency system.
Yeah, but it was one of the more interesting ones I've seen where it's like, okay,
no, that's very clever.
They're kind of measuring it, as well as like Richard said, currency could be there, in labor and trade and barter. That, again, seems to be the most common thing in that. Now, Scott mentioned to me earlier in the week, was we were kind of talking about this beforehand, was he remembered a currency system from a movie. One of the best, absolute best movies out there, The Road Warrior on Water.
Waterworld.
Waterworld.
Yep, the valued in dirt and hydro. Hydro and dirt were their two sort of, and hydro being sort of they meant, that was when they said over and over again, we'll call it pure hydro or whatever. Ugh, and yes, it's H2O rather than salt water becomes the.
Oh, and Kevin Costner's seed. Remember, he will not direct a movie where his seed is not the most valuable commodity in the world. So, a little self-serving and pathetic, but don't forget that.
But it was also.
I was putting that behind me. Just trying to forget.
Well, also interesting with that is how he traded the dirt, but they gave him chits like these again a local currency. It's like, okay, well now you're here, you got this dirt, we're going to give you these chits, and these chits have value here that you could use to buy goods, services.
It's like company script. I don't know if you guys have ever seen company script, but we have a old logging town out on the peninsula called Port Gamble. And they have a museum there because it was a company town, and it was run on company currency that was only good. at the company store and for purchasing things in town. And after that, it was toilet paper. As soon as you got away from the city. I would throw out a couple other, I don't know if you call them currency systems, but there's a novel called Dinner at Deviant's Palace, which is sort of set up in a post-apocalyptic world where the currency system is alcohol. Everyone, you have like a flask or something that's like it's measured off because it's sort of a raw measure of your labor, because labor went into creating the grain and then distilling it down to alcohol, and now it's permanent. It won't rot. It won't go bad. It'll get you drunk. It'll clean a wound. The alcohol, hell, you can burn it for possibly for fuel. So again, it's like the bullets, except it has more uses than the bullets.
And actually, if you've ever watched this quasi-documentary, Doomsday Preppers, a number of the lunatic preppers, even ones who don't drink, end up hoarding alcohol because they believe the imminent collapse of society that's going to happen next year is that's going to be the ultimate trade good. So actually, that's already been adopted to some extent in real life by people.
Well, I agree because we were.
Oh, did Mr. Wallace freeze?
We'll just keep it rolling.
Right.
He said he agreed. So make another point, Scott.
He's kind of puckering there. Let's make fun of the face that Jared is making now.
But going back to the whole idea of feudalism, I would think that in the near post-apocalyptic economy, let's say you're an adventurer, a wanderer, someone who's going from point A to point B, just trying to hunt and gather and make a life as they go. When you come upon a community that's run by the local strongmen or whatever, they're not going to be interested in your money, whatever thing had arbitrary value where you came from. It's your labor, which you had mentioned before, Scott. It's going to be your willingness to dig a ditch, to kill someone, to stand on the rampart, to hunt something. That is to offer in exchange for food, shelter, protection.
Yeah, skill set becomes more important than anything else.
Absolutely.
It also depends on like what stage you are in a post-apocalyptic setting.
Right. That's exactly right.
Well,
because one of the things I mentioned to Jared a few weeks ago was right after the event takes place, the new banks are going to be the supermarkets. Until all the food is gone, the food distribution centers for what we are used to as our economic staple, that's going to be the new currency. Those canned goods are going to be worth their weight in gold because gold's not going to really have much value because you can't do anything with it. I mean, it's heavy, you can't really transport it.
You guys remember The Survivors? Do you guys remember The Survivors, the British TV series from the 70s at all?
Yeah, love it.
Yep.
There was one bit where there was a guy going around with these trucks. And he was collecting up all these cans and stuff, and he was going around and trading goods from the cities that were infested.
There's a remake of that from the 90s, Scott. You know that, right?
Yeah, it was in the 2000s, and I watched some of it.
It was the 2000s, yeah.
It's not as good as the original.
Oh, no, not at all.
The original, but he was going around trading canned goods for gold, and people are like, you're going to give us something that's worth something for this yellow metal? And he's like, sure, it's worth nothing now. But eventually, things are going to get back together, and suddenly, I'll be the richest guy in the world.
That's delusional. But what I was gonna say before I lost connection for a second for about 30 seconds there before I came back. I was feeding off what Mike had said, what you had said about alcohol. Like I had said once, I think we were on a call. We were on a call when I was on one of your guys' shows on the D Infinity Live. My opinion was that the currency, especially right after Apocalypse, what's going to be have the most trade value is you're going to have ammunition, cigarettes, and booze. Because, and Chris countered me, he's like, no, it's going to be food. But nobody's going to trade food for food. You're not going to go, yeah, I'll give you this can for this can. No, it's like,
right.
I need food, but it's like, you know what? I could use some booze, I could use some cigarettes, because they're not right afterwards. They're not necessarily going to be manufactured anymore, especially good cigarettes, good booze, and good ammunition.
It's the coping mechanism that kicks in.
Exactly. So I think that, I mean, won't necessarily take over completely, but I think at least initially people are going to be trained that's like, oh, I'll take some, yeah, oh, you want this food? Yeah, sure, give me that booze, give me those cigarettes, you know. I think that'll be pretty predominant for a while, at least in my opinion. I don't know, I could be wrong. But as Mike said, the preppers say, you know, that they're hoarding booze because they know better, because they're crazy preppers. So
what they need to be hoarding is a still they can distill alcohol with, because that's why a booze
right.
Out. And what they need is something that they can throw a bunch of, you know, half-rotted wheat that they're not going to use, and, you know, or something the rats got into. Well, it doesn't matter. You distill that stuff down, you're going to create a sterile solution.
That's right.
Or like in Metro 2033, where since they live underground and mushrooms are abundant, they make mushroom vodka.
Yeah. Yeah, people will find a way to distill whatever they've got, whatever's available. It will be, because again, it's a way of preserving labor. What Richard was saying about salt, you know, being okay, it's not quite a currency but it is a weight for value thing, because it has a practical application to your survival. Booze is the same way. Alcohol is the same way. It's an antiseptic in a time when we're not going to be getting any more antibiotics. It's a disinfectant. It's a cleaner. It's a fuel, and it's a painkiller. I mean, as far as the medical applications, they're gigantic.
Oh yeah.
Except, I also think it's also a blood thinner. So maybe it's not the best idea to perform surgery while your patient is drunk. But alcohol takes all that wheat that would just rot and turns it into something that is durable. And that's one of the
storable.
Durable good.
Yeah. All right. We'll start wrapping up here a little bit here. Any other interesting currencies or specialized barter systems that anybody's encountered in any books, movies that they possibly seen? Anything besides the standard? Well, I'll trade you labor for labor, or chickens for hens, or anything. Just barter. Anything in particular? Anybody seen?
I've seen one for an old Nintendo game for the NES system. They did a Mad Max game, and the trade good was cans of fuel. I mean, you're driving around going from arena to arena. I don't understand why, but you're going around from arena. I mean, it's kind of like Car Wars. You're like going from one arena to the next to like duel other cars, and your reward is gas.
To get to the next place?
Yeah, essentially, you need the gas to get to the next place, but you also use that gas to stop at like some place to get more ammunition. So like the crazies that are like chasing you down, you can like kill them off before they get you, so you can actually get to the next arena.
I would throw out that my wife ran across something in who is it that wrote the War Against the Couture series? You know what I'm talking about? It's a post-apocalyptic series in that the Earth is being terraformed by aliens who haven't even shown up yet. They're just dropping onto the Earth. They're just dropping onto the Earth these invasive species, plants that are pushing out our species, and animals that are overrunning our planet. And they let us have it with a few plagues from space, so we're down to 15-20% of our population. In the post-apocalyptic, there's still a government, there's still organization, and currency had been boiled down into something they called KCs, which were kilocalories, representing 1,000-calorie units. Everything was based on, all the currency was based on, again, representation of the consumable that you have to use to stay alive.
Interesting.
So that's what I remember.
That's a good one. Basically, currency is basically food that you need to, like you said, consume to continue to do what you need to do. So it's like you need food to live. So therefore, it becomes the primary.
Like it was kind of like a ration book, tickets.
Food like rations.
Yeah. That's one. Obviously, Fallout went from their bottle caps to their
bottle caps,
and then they went to the thing I really like, which was the new California dollar that shows up in Fallout New Vegas. And I like the idea it was worth less, because it was a currency of a place, of a government that was hundreds of miles away, because you weren't inside that country's boundaries or that nation states
Yeah.
boundaries, the currency was only worth like 40% of the regular currency because you had to bank on that place surviving or getting to someone who would accept it.
We mentioned it briefly. Of course, the famous bottle caps. Everybody knows. I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, is it as ridiculous as Domar's? Who knows?
It's not any more ridiculous than Domar's. No.
But why are there so many bottle caps in this
I gotta
world?
show you guys this. This is a Nuka-Cola bottle cap that some guys dressed up at what do you call it?
PAX?
Penny Arcade. Yeah, Penny Arcade Expo were dressed up in these really over-the-top, extremely well-done, Fallout costumes. And the guy was just giving away these Nuka-Cola bottle caps that he'd made himself.
Nice.
They're very cool.
Nice. Now, one bit of news I forgot. It's a minor bit of news I forgot to share. I just got in the mail today on Amazon.com. It's gone on sale. It's as cheap as $16 for the complete series of Logan's Run, the TV series.
No. Holy crap.
For the price of a possible rental, I got the whole thing, and I can enjoy it over and over again.
You're going to need to bootleg that for me and give me a copy of it when I see you a couple months from now.
Now, is your definition of enjoy different than other people's definition?
Hey, there's nothing wrong with stuff that's camp. I'm just going to go on the record and say that kind of attitude toward shows that were better than a lot of what's out there is why we don't have as many shows like that. People bitched and moaned like little tiny whores about Caprica. Caprica was fine. It was fine. It was a fine show. Go back and look at Galactic in 1980 and then shut the fuck up about Caprica.
Wow.
That's all I'm saying.
Mike,
This is what we know Hey, this is what we know is this is why we can't have nice things.
Exactly. So
that's where that was going.
All right, so I think we covered a lot of ground today. We talked about a lot, better understanding of what commerce economy is, kind of how it would be in the apocalypse. Again, not dissimilar to what it is now, except it's just going to be different things which the society will hold of value. Okay. Now, again, good talk, guys. So let's. I'm going to go to some final words. I'll start with Mike. Any final words on the subject or anything else related to this?
If people are into post-apocalyptic gaming, check out our D-Infinity magazine. Dagon Industries, Inc. is a co-publisher of this fine publication, and we have post-apocalyptic game stuff in every issue of it. We just came out with volume number 4. Maybe we can post the link for that. And we're starting production on volume number 5 right now. So good stuff.
Thank you. And just so people know, as I said in one of the first shows, Dagon Industries Inc. is my side business that deals with the Cthulhu stuff. So I'm in cahoots with Mike. So, and Richard, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say if you're going to play any game where you get to look at the economic system and maybe tweak it yourself, really think about what you're doing with it, because like some of the points that we brought up, it really comes down to what's needed in that particular area more than anything else to determine what has value. In fact, you might even be able to take a cue from the rules themselves, because even with a game like chess, there's economics involved. Like each piece has a point value, or it has a number of spaces it can move, and so those are forms of currency because you have to spend like a turn, a move, whatever, and what you do with that strategically is not dissimilar to what you would do in terms of your own survival, because you're making a decision on how to spin things.
Very good, thank you. I never thought about chess like that before, but now I will never look at it the same again. Scott, final thoughts?
In the subject of currency, I would just throw out one of the side quests from Fallout 2. And when you play Fallout 2, the currency system has moved on from bottle caps to gold. I mean, obviously in the last 2 games, 3 in New Vegas, they went back to the bottle caps because they were funnier. But there's a bit where there's like a Treasure of the Sierra Madre quest where you're trying to find this map and track down this treasure that's out in the desert, and you go through all this crap to get there, and it's a Nuka-Cola truck just filled to the rafters with bottle caps. The only minor detail being that the currency has moved on and that now you've killed all kinds of horrible mutant creatures and possibly turned on your companions in order to get the treasure, and it turns out to be absolutely worthless.
Though, as a counterpoint to that, if in May of 1865 you had invested in Confederate currency, 1 bale of Confederate currency was worth $1 US. And if you sat on that Confederate currency long enough, once again, it would have gained some numismatic value. So, like you said, they went back to bottle caps after a point. So, if they would have sat on that truck full of bottle caps, they would have been golden.
Exactly. All right, my final. I don't have much in the way of final thoughts. I think we again covered a lot of ground here. My final thoughts going to be. I'm going to pose one question because we're thinking of Waterworld, which made me think of Kevin Costner, which made me think of Kevin Costner movies, which made me think of
Kevin Costner's Seed.
The Postman, which made me think of Tom Petty. And I always like to pose this question to people: is Tom Petty friend of the apocalypse? Yes or no? Because he was in The Postman. And if you go back to the 1980s to the song, what the hell is the name of the song? You Got Lucky. The video for You Got Lucky, You Got Lucky Babe, is all kind of leftovers from like Mad Max-ish.
Oh, no, dude, it's Logan's Run.
Logan's Run car from the TV series in there. So that's so the video is all post-apocalyptic, and then he winds up down years later being in the Postman. So. Mike, friend of the apocalypse, Tom Petty?
Yeah, sure. Anytime you're actually, getting people getting the masses interested in that kind of stuff on any level, so that some of them can go on to deepen their interest, then I'd say, yeah, friend of the apocalypse.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I'd say so. Given that, he's a pretty famous guy. The music video is pretty out there, and then Postman being what it is, that scene between him and Costner, he's like, "No, you're famous, man." So it's lending his fame to that whole thing. So yeah,
I'd have to agree for one extra reason. Tom Petty was born and raised in Gainesville, Florida, and when I was growing up in Florida, and Petty's got 10 years on me. But when I was growing up in Central Florida, required reading during the 70s and 80s in high school or junior high school, I think it was high school, was Pat Frank's Alas, Babylon, which was this novel about a third world war that all takes place in Florida. And a lot of my friends who were in public schools in Florida, that was on the curriculum. You had to read this because it was the story of World War III taking place in our backyard. And Fort Defiance, or whatever the place is, that's the small town in Alas, Babylon, is right in Tom Petty's neck of the woods.
So there's a good chance he probably read it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Okay, folks, again, thank you very much for being here. Another successful show.
Thanks.
I haven't decided yet what we're going to do for next show. I'm thinking maybe. I'm probably thinking television in the apocalypse, television shows, and we're not talking about The Walking Dead, and we're not going to talk about Revolution. We're not going to talk about the two most popular things that are out there. We're going to dig deep.
Revolution's popular?
Apparently, I hear people talking about it. I see it on the
It's fine.
It's I stopped watching it. So we're not talking about that. We're not talking about The Walking Dead. I'm going to dig deep. We're going to talk about things like Logan's Run. Or we're going to talk about Survivors, or The Colony, or there's different, The Colony, that show. So different kind of maybe I'm going to try to dig up some more obscure type TV shows.
Good.
Can we talk about the miniseries America with a K?
Maybe we could.
Apocalyptic, so no, we can't.
Oh, it's an apocalypse for America. It's an apocalypse for freedom, baby.
That's right. So that's probably what we're going to do next. We're going to talk about some different TV shows. And again, we'll have multiple shows talking about TV shows because there's so many of them out there. So again, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you everybody for joining us who are watching us live. Thanks for joining us live. Again, we're going to archive it. It'll be on YouTube. You can watch it. Tell your friends. Again, be socially responsible. Everybody who's watching it, tell your friends. Follow us on Twitter. Go to the blog, like us on Facebook, just spread the word. I'm Jared, the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace, and Mike, Richard, Scott, Glancy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see everybody in the Wastelands next week. Thank you, and good night.